Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, we are gathered here today to talk about Plex versus Emby versus Jellyfin, and I am determined to give you the unadulterated truth, what no other YouTube channel will give you, I dare to say. So, are you brave enough to go along with me to understand which is the definitive winner, if there is one? If you're not familiar, Plex, Emby, and Jellyfin are home media server platforms that let you run your own private streaming service. You add your digital movies, TV shows, and music, and the software automatically pulls posters, artwork, and metadata like descriptions, cast, and genres. You can then browse and stream your library on devices such as Roku, Google TV, and mobile apps. I know I've glossed over that pretty quickly, but if you're watching this, I'm assuming you have a base level understanding of what we're looking at here. In terms of core features, Plex, Emby, and Jellyfin all basically do the same thing. In general, I would say that any one of these works well as a home media server. I'm going to dig into some more detail and form some stronger opinions about this as we go along. Looking at some high-level items, let's start with cost. Both Plex and Emby are companies, and many of their features have a cost associated with them. In contrast, Jellyfin is a free and open source solution, with no corporation behind it. That comes with strengths and trade-offs. Not having a company calling the shots can free you from the potential evils of corporate greed, or just simply the need to make money in order for the company to survive and thrive. But it also means there aren't paid engineers dedicated to polishing features or fixing bugs. Progress in Jellyfin depends on people donating their time and their energy to keep the project moving. Next, we'll take a look at privacy. Plex has an official privacy policy that details the usage information they are tracking about you, and it's tracking a pretty substantial amount of data. I couldn't find an official privacy policy for Emby, but they do have a blog article that states no data harvesting. I couldn't find an official privacy statement for Jellyfin, but word out on the internet is that Jellyfin doesn't track you. So if you're a privacy-minded person, Emby and Jellyfin would be better options for you. Now, all that being said, the privacy of the home media server is only part of the equation here. If you're playing your content back on a Roku device or a Google TV device, these devices are tracking you. Or if you're using a smart TV, it is tracking you as well. There's a lawsuit in Texas against the 5 major TV manufacturers and their aggressive tracking of end-user activity without user consent. All right, now that all that high-level stuff is out of the way, this is where the rubber really meets the road, the end-user experience using the various client apps. We're going to look at the web apps, the Roku apps, and the Google TV apps. The web app runs in any web browser on any laptop, desktop, whatever, whether it be Brave, Safari, Chrome, whatever you're into. This is the homepage for Plex. This is the homepage for Emby. And this is the homepage for Jellyfin. Now looking at Plex, you have a couple of rows here. The first row is your continue watching. Then you have recently added in movies, and recently added throughout the rest of your libraries. So, oh, and don't judge my content. I hear you. I hear some of you out there are judging me. Yeah, my content of my home media library is all over the place. Like, you're not going to pin my taste down at all. Anyway, you've got your rows here, continue watching and recently added. Over in Emby, your first row is your libraries. Then you have your continue watching, then your latest movies, latest TV shows, and whatnot. Jellyfin, very similar thing here. You've got your media libraries up top, your continue watching, and then your recently added. So across all 3 of these apps, very similar home screen presentations, very similar functionality. Functionally, they do the same thing. One thing you'll notice as we go through Plex is that, particularly on the web app, but also through their other apps, there's a cohesiveness to it. There's a glue, there's a polish that you're not going to see in the other 2 apps. However, things are on a much more even playing ground when looking at the web apps. When we get to the Roku and Google TV apps, it's a bit of a different story. Navigation. So in Plex on the left, you have your libraries and other navigational elements. This is expanded. You can also shrink it down so that you just have the icons. The icons to me can sometimes be annoying. You can see here I have 2 libraries that are for movies, and so you just see the 2 movie icons. If you mouse over this, it will fly out. If you leave it, it flies back in. You can click on the hamburger menu and park it. Over in Emby, you have your media library navigation here, or you can click on this hamburger menu and get a fly out for left side nav. And then when you leave focus of that, it'll close. Or you can click here and park it. And so you can see that Emby actually has a little bit more flexibility, a little bit more customization in the way that it presents its navigation. Now, I will say that its navigation is a little bit clunkier than the left navigation over in Plex. It's just nice and cohesive over here. And whatever library is highlighted, it's just this nice highlight color. You can see home is yellow there, whereas you get a full highlight here. So it's just a little clunkier. End of the day, it does the same damn thing though. Over in Jellyfin, the navigation, again, you have your library view here, or you can click on their hamburger menu and get a similar thing. This is only a fly out though, and you can't park it. So it either flies out or collapses. One other thing I want to point out, that when you're in Plex here, you can see that they have their main navigation bar at the top with their branding, and that's parked there. That's there the whole time, no matter what page you're on. When you're in Emby, their top nav and their branding disappears as you scroll, which I'm really not a fan of. I'd really much prefer that to be sticky. And when you get to Jellyfin, their top nav bar, that is sticky as well. So both Plex and Jellyfin have sticky nav bars at the top, whereas Emby scrolls out of view. Next up, homepage customization. For each of these rows, you can customize whether they are displayed or not displayed. And in Plex, you have to go into each library, manage the library, edit it, go down to advanced, and then there's this visibility option. You can exclude it from the home screen, or you can include it in the home screen. So you have to go into each library. It's a little bit of a convoluted navigation path to get there. Whereas in Emby, we can come over here and we can see my home screen preferences. Emby gives you 7 home rows. And for each of those home rows, you can pick what that row is doing. So all of their home row customization options are in one place, very easy to manage, very easy to get to. Whereas in Plex, like I said, you have to go to TV, manage library, edit, advanced, and then there's the visibility. So it's really spread throughout each library view in Plex and consolidated here in Emby. Looking over at Jellyfin, it is very similar. If we go to settings, home, you can see there are 10 home screen sections here, and you can control what's in each one of those. So in terms of home screen customization, I think both Jellyfin and Emby have a little bit of a leg up. Plex does the same thing. It's just a little bit more difficult to get to. Next on our list of things to look at, we're going to look at a library view. So we're going to go to the movie high bitrate collection in each of these. Here that view is in Plex, hopping over to Emby, and then finally hopping over to Jellyfin. So you can see not a whole lot of difference. It's pretty similar here. So they're all very serviceable and all very comparable until you get to the customization options. Here in Plex, you can control the size. That's the largest size you can have, and that's the smallest size you can have. And then there's some options that you can display it as a detail view, or you can display it as a table view. The table view itself is pretty sparse. So there are some presentation options here, but not a lot. Over in Emby, this is where Emby really shines. This is cool. So when you come here, you can change your poster view from primary to, say, thumbnail. And you can see you get a very different kind of presentation here. And they have some other things. They have table view, list view, whatever. One difference between their table view and the Plex table view, let's bring that back. As I remarked, this is a very simple view. There's not a lot here. It's just the title and the year, and it's kind of bleh. Whereas in Emby, right off the bat, you get a lot more information, and then you also can control what columns are displayed here. So you've got a whole bunch of options for what data are you particularly interested in seeing. So very strong customization options over here. In terms of size, they have a broader size variety. That's extra small. And then we can go to extra large, which is pretty darn gigantic. So let's set that back to the default view. Another customization option you have here is you can turn off all the fields. Then you just have a nice condensed poster view. Over in Plex, we put back the grid view, you can't turn off the title and the year. They're just always there. So for me, I prefer this view. Like normally the poster conveys the title. I don't care about the year, so that's not a thing for me. Looking a little bit more at what you can do with customization options, like I think this is kind of cool. If we set it to thumbnails and we set them to larger, and then we can say add the overview, that's kind of a cool view. Like I like that. It works well for like a desktop if you're on a laptop or on a computer with a monitor. I don't like this view on an actual TV because this text is just too small on the TV and doesn't provide a lot of value. My main point here is you can see the flexibility that you have with customizing the library view in Emby. It's just really cool. Anyway, back to our library comparison view. We looked at Plex, we looked at Emby and its high customization options. And now we're over in Jellyfin. Not a lot you can do here. You can switch to thumbnail, something that Plex doesn't support. You can switch to a list. Meh, it's not great, but that's about all that you can do. So not a lot of customization options here. You can't even change the size of the posters like you can do in both Emby and Plex. So presentation-wise, like I said, all three of them out of the box, very comparable. But there are some definite advantages with Emby and the way that you can customize the presentation. Next up, let's look at a movie. So let's bring up Aliens in all three of these. There we go. So let's start with Plex. The top part here in UI parlance is generally called a highlight, an overview. It can be called a jumbotron. It can be called a hero. It's just a big header for the page. Here you can see what we have in Plex. You've got the poster. You've got some metadata. Over here in Emby, it's a decent view. It's very comparable. And then you have in Jellyfin, I think this is a mess. I think this is disjointed. I don't think it's got a lot of nice UI flow to it. At the end of the day, it does what it's supposed to do, but I just think it's kind of messy. I do like that they're taking advantage of the screen real estate with a larger poster. I think that makes sense. The buttons in Plex are the best. They've got your primary button, your call to action button is highlighted there. 9.9 times out of 10, that's probably the only button you're going to click on. The secondary buttons in this button group just have this nice highlight, but they're otherwise icons. So Plex does a really good job here with their buttons. Looking at the buttons in Emby, they're not bad, but they're weighted very heavily here visually. There's a lot of visual weight to these. So I wish they did a little bit more like Plex does here to make them not quite as prominent, but it's okay. And I do wish that this was highlighted as, the primary button you're going to. Looking at the buttons in Jellyfin, they do follow, kind of the icon view. So they're not, this button group isn't as imposing from a visual perspective, but it's parked over here and it's just, you got to look for it a little bit. Not that you can't find it, but again, I think this is just disjointed. Going back to Plex, you have your cast and crew. Over here, the cast and crew is these rectangles, portrait view. And when you scroll down here, it's very similar in Jellyfin. Scrolling down more on the Plex page, you do get reviews. You can turn this off if you don't like it. Then Plex will pull in these extras. I don't know where it gets it from. A lot of times they're just trailers or scenes, so a lot of times there's not a lot of value in the extras that it's pulling in. Sometimes it does, but it's more hit or miss. And then Plex is always trying to push you to spend money. I'm sure they get a kickback if anybody spends money on these things. Then you get your related movies, and that's it for that page. Going over to Emby, you've got your cast and crew. And this is something cool that Emby does that neither Plex nor Jellyfin does. If there are chapter stops or chapter markers in a movie, it displays them. So you can hop around to the different chapters, and that's super cool. Then you get more like this, and you get your IMDb links, so you can go see more information about it. Over Jellyfin, that's about all you get. You get your cast and crew, and then you get more like this. Digging into the cast and crew, if we look at Sigourney Weaver, let's bring her up in all three. Over here, not quite a flattering picture of her. You get a biography of her. Over in Emby, much more flattering picture, and the same biography here. One thing you'll see here, though, is just such a total waste of space. There is so much dead space over here. Why not take advantage of it? Whereas in Jellyfin, they're a little bit smarter with that. You've got the space, display the photo bigger. You've got the room. They have the biography here. Then they have related movies that it's finding in the library, as well as related episodes in TV shows that are in this library. And so you'll see it's finding that Sigourney's in 2 Doc Martin episodes that are in my library. That's really cool. Emby does the same thing, shows you the shows and the movies that it's finding Sigourney in, but it also shows the episodes. I don't have Futurama loaded up in Jellyfin, so you can see it's finding the same 2 Doc Martin episodes. In Jellyfin, it happens to find thumbnails that actually have Sigourney in them, whereas over in Emby, it doesn't. Actually, I think that's Sigourney there, but for some reason, we've got different thumbnails here, which is weird. Over in Plex, you do get the other things that she's in, but when you get to like a TV show that she's in, it only shows like here, for instance, it shows that she's in Futurama. It doesn't show the specific episode that she's in, though. So if you're interested in a particular actor and watching them in other content that's in your library, particularly for television shows, Emby and Jellyfin do a better job here because they take you right to that specific episode. The other thing that you get in Plex that you don't get in Emby or Jellyfin is that you get a full filmography down here. So this is basically, what they're pulling off of IMDb, more likely. If you go over to both Emby and Jellyfin, Jesus. They both have links to IMDb. They don't actually pull that information in. And I'm surprised at how often my wife and I reference this information. So I do find a lot of value in this. Next up, we're going to look at a television show. So I have Dairy Girls queued up here. Here in Plex, you can see you've got your highlight up here. And then you have each of your seasons, followed by cast and crew, ratings, extras. We've been through this. It's very similar to the movie screen, except for that you've got your different seasons. Over in Emby, very similar thing. You can see that Emby's poster is a little larger. They're taking a little bit more advantage of the screen real estate they have here. It didn't pull down a comprehensive cover art set here like Plex did that are similar. Like this is different. It's just a thing. I want them to be consistent. Then you've got your cast and crew, and same thing we were looking at before. Over in Jellyfin, it's a little bit different. They're taking advantage of the screen real estate with this larger photo, but this, just like the movie view, it's just a bit of a disjointed mess. And then you come down, you've got your seasons and your cast and crew. Now, one thing I don't like over here is that when you have your seasons and your cast and crew, they're both the same size. So they both carry the same visual weight. Whereas over in Plex, you can see that the cast and crew, they're not as tall, they're the same width, but they're also not the same shape. And so this has more visual weight, the season list, than the cast and crew list. And this goes to show you, and you'll see this time and time again in Plex, they have UX designers that are thinking about things like visual weight, consistency in UI, the way they highlight things. They just clearly have really talented UX designers on hand. Not that this is terrible, it's just that if you know about UX design and things to look at and think about, and even subconscious stuff, when you see this, it's really sticks out at you. All right, let's go into a season. Cue up season 1 here. There we go. So looking at it at Plex, you got your buttons, your cast and crew, and then you have your episodes. Not bad. You can also change your view to grid view, and then you don't have any descriptions. Not all shows have titles for the episodes, and so here it's kind of annoying. It doesn't say like, getting in trouble in school episode or anything like that. So for some shows, having the description in this list view is much better. Over here, list view, pretty similar. This is another thing that I'll point out, that when you're looking at a good UX designer, text should not go this long in a single row. The human eye has trouble tracking this, particularly if it's a paragraph with multiple lines. And you can see that Plex knows that. Again, they have real UX designers that know all of these things, that the human eye can't track too far on a single line, and they cut it off. So this is appropriate UX design. This coming out to the edge here shows you that they don't have people thinking about the UX to quite the same level. You can scroll through the episodes here. It's all well and good. It all works. Over on Jellyfin, it's all right. You've got larger posters here. Like, this is actually pretty okay in my book. The visual weight of the episodes is second only to the season poster. So their weighting here, I don't know if it's completely random on their part. Highest rating, second highest rating, and third highest rating. So there's a real hierarchy here of visual weight, but they're so inconsistent with it over in Jellyfin that I think that they just kind of got lucky here, or they just had somebody that knew what they were doing on this page. So in terms of the web apps, they're all pretty decent. You can tell that Plex clearly has some really good UX designers on staff, and the overall end user experience is generally the most polished. Emby offers some customization options that outpace Plex, and while Jellyfin gets the job done, in my opinion, it is the weakest of the 3 web apps. A quick side note, I know there are ways to customize the Jellyfin web app by injecting custom CSS into it, which is an option to improve the Jellyfin web app experience, but for the purposes of this video, we're going to stick to comparing the out-of-the-box experience. Next, we come to Plex on Roku, and when you look at this, it is pretty much the same cohesive, polished experience that you have on any device for Plex, with one exception, one very glaringly horrible exception. They used to have their navigation on the left in the Roku app, just like they do on their web app. But a while ago, they moved it to the top, and it is god awful. I cannot tell you how bad this is. I mistakenly click on libraries instead of one of those menu items. It used to be that within a collection, you could pin what your default view is. I like custom collections, and so I used to have custom collections pinned as my default TV view. You can't do that anymore. So this is an extremely unfriendly, unfortunate thing that Plex has done, that the user community at large has really railed against, and they refuse to really do anything about it. This is very unfriendly for kids or for older parents to be able to use. If you're out there thinking that I'm overstating this, I'm not. It is genuinely so bad, and it is a blight on an otherwise wonderful, beautiful experience here in Plex. It does have some presentation elements that make it a little bit nicer on a TV viewing versus, viewing on a web browser and on a laptop or a desktop. One thing that I wanted to mention that I forgot to mention when looking at the web app, and this is important, when you're inside a TV season, like I am now, you can go to the top here and they have navigation items for each season. So when you're in a season, you can change to a different season. And that's a nice thing that Plex has, and we're going to show you in a minute. That's a nice thing that both Emby and Jellyfin don't have. That's kind of a big deal. But we'll cover that in a minute when we get to them. Anyway, not a lot to linger on here. It's a great experience. It's very much like what you saw in the web app, except for this god-awful UI up here at the top. Now we're looking at Emby on Roku, and it starts off a really good experience. You know, that the nav bar at the top there, that's okay. I think it could be a little bit more polished, but that's being nitpicky. You've got your library navigation here, which is nice, and I've grown to really like this. And maybe if Plex did something like this, that could solve their whole Roku issue. You've got your continue watching, which are thumbnails, which is a nice delineation between, you know, your libraries, which are then your standard poster view. When you go into, let's say, a movie here, come on. You see you've got that clunky spinner, very old school spinner, and then you've got these big chunky buttons. It's just not very polished and not very refined. Then you've got standard view stuff, so it's not horrible in here. There's just a couple of things that I pick on that I really wish they could improve, and these buttons are one of them. Another thing that I have found is that oftentimes when my wife and I are watching something, we'll go see, hey, what's this guy about? And when we've been doing that in Emby, this guy's not about a whole lot. You can see this is a bug I experience a lot. The icons don't load for the buttons. There's a lot of buggy stuff in here. I don't know if it's their QA process or what's going on. But then if you see here, this is another UI bug. I run into this quite a bit. You can see that the highlight is for a thumbnail that's off screen. This happens a lot of times for me, and come on, catch this and fix this. It's just embarrassing. Okay, another thing I want to talk about is that season navigation. So if we go into like lower decks and we come down here and we pick season 3, there's no way to get to season 4 or any other season now. You have to go back to the main series by doing that or just hitting the back button. But it would be nice if they had some way to navigate between seasons. Other than that, it's generally a good experience. I've been in here using it for a month. My wife has been using it as well for a month. We haven't really used Plex. We have switched to using Emby to do the full experiments, and it's been frustrating. It's very buggy. We can, rewind something and all of a sudden the subtitles come on. Sometimes we pause something and the subtitles come on. It seems weird, but the subtitles can get tripped on. Switching language tracks can be weird. When you stop viewing an episode, it doesn't advance to the next episode correctly. It's just there's a lot of end polish that's not there that can be a frustrating experience. Like I said, when we like to look at the information on an actor, we just looked at that in Emby, and let's do that same thing here. So let's go down to Heartbeat, and it was this guy, Bill Maynard. Okay, it's not a very full biography here, but there's a little bit of a biography. And then you can scroll down and you can see what he's known for here. Or you can view his complete filmography, which is something that we do a lot. When Plex first added this, I thought it was dumb. I didn't understand it, but we use this so much, and it's really nice how Plex does it here, and this is completely absent in Emby or Jellyfin. And so this is something we really miss when we're in Emby. So Emby, if you're listening, this is a way to really improve things, improve your cast and crew. It's pretty weak by comparison. So anyway, that's Emby. I like it. It works, but it's so buggy. It makes it really frustrating sometimes. Now going to Jellyfin. This is just a big no for me, dog. Like, it just, this already is just amateurish. When you go into movies, I get what they're doing with these things. I get what they're offering the end user in terms of browsing your library, but I've just never seen a streaming service, whether it be Plex, Emby, or Netflix or Hulu. I've never seen anybody present it that way. It's just clunky. There's got to be a cleaner way to do that. Other than that, the general navigation in here is not terrible. It presents pretty nicely going into a movie. This is an issue. This button group here, the play, the options, this should be on an X-axis so that I go left and right for this. Because what happens is if I want to get down to the cast list or anything below this, it's on the Y-axis. So I have to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 just to get to the cast and crew or to go to rows that are below that. And so again, navigating the Y-axis, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, that's not user-friendly. This button group should be on an X-axis. Again, this is just UX stuff that you can tell Plex has really good designers. Emby has pretty good designers, but Jellyfin, their designers are kind of missing the boat a bit. Another thing with shows, we go into Dairy Girls. We've used that before. It's just not great. Now when you come down to see the seasons, I get that if you had a show that was 10 or 15 seasons, it would fill the screen a lot more. But what's going on here? And then I have to hit back to get to this view. It's just such a waste of space. Like, at least make these bigger, if anything. When you go into view a season, again, that header is just bleh. Now, each episode, that's not horrible. That's pretty nice, except that it's rolling. So when I get to the last episode in the season, it rolls back to the top again. I really don't like that. I'm assuming they think that's a quality of life end user thing, but I hate it. Because if you're scrolling quick to go through like 24 episodes or something, this is only a 6-episode list, but if you're going through something that has a lot of episodes, you might miss when you roll. It's annoying. So there's not much else to talk about here. Again, it works. It does what it needs to do. You can browse your media and you can get to stuff, but it's just not a great end user experience in my opinion. So Plex on Roku, fantastic, except for that stupid menu. Emby, really good on Roku, but there's a lot of janky stuff. There's a lot of bugs in there that just really detract from it. Like, when you're in Plex, other than that top menu, you're driving the Ferrari. In Emby, you're in the Honda that's making a funny noise. It still drives, it still gets you there. And when you're in Jellyfin, you're in the 40-year-old Honda Civic that's just kind of fallen apart, and it's not a very nice drive. So that's my assessment of the Roku apps. Next up, Google TV. Now, I didn't own a Google TV device prior to making this video. I went to Walmart and bought this $20 on box, and I was surprised at how responsive it is. It is very fast, very snappy. So let's take a quick look at Plex. What's interesting here is they have the left-handed navigation that the web app has. And it leads me to think that because this is an Android device, they just repacked the web app in a wrapper for Android. So I think that's what we're looking at here. It's the only explanation I can think of. Whereas when you're developing for Roku, it's a completely different development platform. You can't develop like you can for a standard web app. Roku doesn't support HTML or CSS. They have their own completely custom thing. So this is nice that you have that here. If I could stand Google TV, which, I'll be honest up front, I'm not a fan of Google TV, but this is a better Plex experience because of the navigation here on Android on a Google TV. So everything else pretty much as you would expect it. Again, as I said before, Plex has a cohesiveness to their apps. This menu navigation thing aside, that's the only thing that varies between their apps, and it's maddening because it's really the only blight I can put on Plex other than their privacy policy. All right, let's go check out Emby. Emby looks good here. The home screen looks good. It still has some of the weird wonky stuff, these big chunky buttons. Otherwise, Emby's pretty good here. Some of the same complaints that I have on the Roku app, but it is pretty decent. So not a lot to look at here that we haven't already looked at. Like, we'll just go into a movie view. I do want to talk about some of the customization options. We looked at them on the web app. Most of those same customization options for Emby are also available on their Roku app, but there is a difference here that on their, what the hell are we in? Google TV app. Sorry, I get confused between the devices and the platforms we're talking about. There's not the same level of options here that you have both on the web app and on the Roku app. So it's not as good of an experience here in terms of customization, but there still are ways to customize it. All right, we're not spending a lot of time here in Google land, but lastly, let's look at Jellyfin. Again, meh, it's not great. When you go through the thumbnails, they're kind of crunchy. They're kind of smooshed together. You've got that Rotten Tomatoes thing down there, which is, I think it's a Rotten Tomato thing. Why is it there? I don't want it there. When you go into movie view, you get this weird layout. This is the default layout. It's like, why is this default? Now, there are settings that you can change the grid direction from horizontal to vertical. And when we come back, that fixes that. It's still a bit smooshy. You can come over here back to settings and you can change the image size. So we'll say large, and that's better. So we're improving the view over here, but why isn't this the out of the box view? What else can we do? We can change our poster type. Let's look at thumbnail there. So some customization options, but overall, I'm just not a fan of in here. I don't think it's super good. Let's go into all creatures. Yeah, where's the poster? Like, they don't even have the poster here. So this header on Google TV, it's even worse than what it was on Roku, which is worse than what it was on web. So there's a degrading scale of quality here between their client apps. Again, you can browse your media, you can play your media, it works just fine. But in looking at this, Jellyfin just isn't an option for me because I don't think that their client apps are very polished, and I just wouldn't be happy driving this day to day. So that's a quick look at the Google apps. So, which of these three media servers is the best choice? It depends. If you aren't picky and just want something to host your media for playback on client devices, then any one of these solutions will work for you just fine. If you want a completely free option, then Jellyfin is the choice. If you value privacy, then there's one clear loser, and that's Plex. If you're an open source fan or a fan of the underdog, then Jellyfin is likely your choice. If you're only using the web app, then any one of these will do the job. If you're a fan of a polished and professional experience on client devices like Roku or Google TV, then Plex is the number one choice, followed by Emby, with Jellyfin at a distant third. So the answer to which one of these solutions is the best pick really depends on what you value the most and how that balances with these offerings. Anyway, there you have it. That's how I see things in the Plex versus Emby versus Jellyfin wars. I hope this was valuable to those out there investigating any of these platforms. If you use Plex or Emby or Jellyfin, let me know what you think in the comments. Thanks for watching, and as always, if you could give a like and a subscribe, I'd be mighty obliged.